So I'm going to be taking a look at the Singer Heavy Duty. This is the 4411 model. I'm pretty new to sewing, but over the past year or so I've been making increasing amounts of my own outdoor gear. Partly because some stuff I want to get is not easily available or is very expensive, and partly because it's just cool to learn a new skill. So I'm going to run through how to set up the machine, I'm going to run through the basic stitches I use and show the settings I use for those, and hopefully you'll get a good idea of whether this is the kind of machine that would be right for your own make your own gear project. Before we dive into some sewing examples and demos, I'll talk you through quickly some of the reasons why I chose this machine. Now, it gets good write-ups on the Make Your Own Gear forums. It's pretty popular for a new machine. You know, a lot of people would say buy a second-hand industrial machine, but obviously that has its own challenges, etc. So these retail at around £200 or so, or $200 probably stateside. You can get them cheaper; they're sometimes a bit more expensive. But it boasts a few features that are ideal if you're into make your own gear type of sewing. Some of these features are a 60% more powerful motor, so it can punch through heavier fabrics such as wax cottons quite easily. Another is this high presser foot, so you can actually fit quite a lot of layers under there, which if you're sewing in the heavier fabrics is super useful. It boasts a metal frame inside, so ultimately it's a pretty strong and sturdy machine, which helps avoid skipped stitches, vibrations, etc. as well. And it also has a super fast speed for a consumer machine, so I think 1100 stitches a minute. And that's useful in a number of ways. One of the things I find is if I'm sewing something like a tarp, which has very long edges, just not sitting there with the thing plodding away for ages is an advantage. And once you're all aligned, actually I find if I sew quicker I get neater, straighter stitching. So first up, a basic run through of the controls. You'll notice this is a fairly simple mechanical machine. There aren't lots of computerised control settings, which actually makes it hopefully super reliable but also pretty easy to use. You've got your stitch type selector. There's 11 different stitches on offer. I actually only really use or have so far only used the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch option, but more on that later. You have the stitch length selector, including if you're doing Bartacks, using the short stitch lengths to make Bartacks effectively. You have the width of the stitch, so when you have a stitch like a zigzag stitch that goes left to right, you can set the width with this piece here. Needle position, for most of my sewing I tend to leave this central anyway, and tension, which goes from 0 to 9. Generally for the thicker, heavier fabrics I've been using, again I've been leaving this on the higher range of settings. You then have the reverse lever, so when you need to reverse, for instance to back up your stitch to stop it unravelling at the start, you hold this down and the machine will work in reverse. So again I'll demonstrate that a bit later. Threading the machine is a pretty simple affair, and actually all these steps are numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back down 6 under here, to make it something that's pretty easy to remember. Once you've done it a few times it becomes almost second nature. So I'll just show that to you now quickly. Just take the end of my thread. Incidentally, I'm threading off this big spool back here rather than the little spool on the machine, just purely, well, the blue is a bit more visible for you to see. So 1, 2, under there, round here, down, and then through the couple of hooks above the needle itself. And always the tricky bit through the needle. Oh, I do need to cut the end of my thread. It's got a little dangly bit that makes it hard to thread. There we go. So once we're done, hook it through the foot. To fit the bottom bobbin, it's fairly simple as well. You pop this little catch, flip up the little plastic plate. This then, if I find an end and it doesn't unravel itself, goes in there, round, a tiny little catch on there, and then we pop that on. There we go, both threads in place, ready to sew. Go a bit closer on that bit. Refilling bobbins is also super easy. Effectively these go on this shaft here. It's clipped through here, or you clip your thread through there and round this little tension button effectively before giving it a few winds and simply operating the foot pedal until the bobbin's full. There we go. So I've got a little scrap here of wax canvas, not particularly big. I'm not going to do anything tremendous with it. What I'll do is I'll just sew this quickly into a little drawstring bag or a little roll top bag that might be useful for tent pegs or such like, just to demonstrate how easy it is to use this machine. I'm going to start by just hemming the top edge of the strip of fabric. I can line that up with the alignment or seam allowance guide here. Pop my foot down. Start with some reverse and then trot. Again, finish with a bit of reverse. Foot up, needle up, and there we go. Super simple, neat, strong hemmed edge in this waxed cotton with nice even stitching. In terms of the setting for that, we can see straight stitch, length 4 because I've gone for fairly long stitches, no width isn't applicable, needle position central, and tension 9. I find with this heavier thread and these heavier fabrics, 8 or 9 is really where the tension seems to stay for me most of the time. Okay, same again, just to hem the other top edge. Now, in order to give me a fastening mechanism in the bag, what I'm just going to do is a bit of ribbon sewn down here. I'll just include it as part of the seam. And the way to do this is just to tuck this inside with a bit sticking out and then sew the hem normally. There we have it, super rudimentary basic bag, usable for tent pegs or something. Again, not really a few minutes to make, so not something I've designed with a lot of thought, but really just something to show how easy it is to produce a product, even if it's a bit rough, from this machine super easily. Now obviously it's only any good if the stitching holds up, so just to demonstrate the stitching from this machine, I'm just going to sew these two other bits of scrap together quickly and do a rip test to show you really how strong these basic stitches can be. There we go, so 2 bits of fabric stuck together with a bit of thread, and there's a little slight crack from the fabric there, but I cannot break that. There we go, so even after all that pulling, seams all intact, no problems. I've really experienced no problems with the strength of the seams for this wax cotton type sewing with this machine. Now, I've mentioned another couple of stitch types I've been using on this machine, so I'll give a quick demo of those as well. The first up is the Zigzag Stitch, and this is what the settings look like. So for the zigzag, I put that over there. I'm happy to keep the length there. I'll down the width slightly. I don't need a huge zigzag stitch to 4 for this example, so length 4, width 4. Everything else remains the same. So there we go, pretty neat, not perfect, but pretty neat zigzag stitch there, easily achievable. Actually you can see the length is slightly longer than the width, so by playing with those length and width controls you can alter the size of your zigzag. I'll show you a quick super short zigzag. Now the third stitch I use occasionally, or have been using to make things strong, is a structural stitch which is called a Bartack. So I'm just going to put a little loop in this webbing and then I'll do something like hang off it just to show really how strong that, that Bartack is. Now the Bartack is really just a very short zigzag stitch, so I'll leave this one on zigzag, pop the length down to super short, the width of the Bartack I'll put up to 5 say, and again leave the other bits unchanged. So let's sew that loop in the webbing and see how we get on, or whether I sprain my ankle hanging off it. Okay, so everything's set up. Now I found this to be the trickiest. For a beginner or novice sewer such as myself, this Bartack I found slightly trickier than the other stitches. Maybe partly because the webbing doesn't flow quite so smoothly over the foot. But let's give it a go and see what we can get. Now again, super neatness isn't my priority. There's a little bit of bunchy and looseness there, I haven't quite got this right, but in terms of a perfect Bartack, that is far from it. But what we do have is a neat enough, for my purposes, structural stitch. If I was to do something that I really needed strength, I might do 2 or 3 of them. One important point to note is, this is the kind of stitching that's often used on climbing harnesses. Under no circumstance would I be mucking around doing these kinds of stitching for climbing kit. That would be just a little bit silly and a little bit dangerous. Another point worth noting is I've obviously used blue thread for this demo purpose. If I was to make something that I was worried about the appearance of it for, I'd match it with black, and then the fact that this is not perfectly tidy wouldn't be an issue. So just to demonstrate the strength of stitching, I've tied off that bit of webbing I've just sewn here with this loop. You can see that here. Apologies for the focus. And I'm just going to clip this crab into here with this leg loop and stand in that to put all my weight onto that little sewn loop. So sit in there, hold this, we'll have to hang on here, and there we go. My whole body weight hung off an old piece of webbing and a single Bartack from the Singer Heavy Duty. So yeah, certainly, as I say, not something I'd use for climbing strength stuff, but certainly something that I'd be confident in for homemade kits such as tarps and bags, etc. So hopefully that's given you a good idea of how easy it is to use the heavy duty. As you've seen, knocking together things like bags, even doing some strong structural stuff like webbing, or creating things, like the wax oilcloth tarp I've used in some other videos for wild camping. Super straightforward with this machine, and in all honesty, I can't rate it highly enough. What don't I like about the machine, all importantly? Well, probably the only thing that really jumps out is the foot pedal. Now, the foot pedal, for those who aren't familiar with sewing, is basically used to control the speed of the machine, and the one supplied with the Singer, it's all made to a price, of course, but this just feels really flimsy plastic thing. It's very light, so it sort of kicks around on the floor easily and moves. So weightier and higher quality pedal would be good, but of course I do accept that they're making this thing to a price as well. But it does seem a bit out of keeping with the rest of the machine's solidity. Saying that, I haven't experienced any actual problems in the reliability of this piece, so I can't really complain too heavily about it. So the Singer Heavy Duty 4411, would I recommend it? Absolutely. Would I buy it again if it broke? Quite likely. I think it's pretty unlikely to break, and you can get these things repaired, of course. I've been impressed with how easy it is to use and set up. I've been happy with the results. You know, as a novice, I'm not expecting professional quality, but certainly in terms of strength and functionality, the stitching I'm able to produce is certainly stood up to everything I can throw at it. Please, if you've enjoyed the video or found anything in here useful, do like and subscribe, and also check out the blog links in the description where you might find some additional interesting stuff. Thanks for watching.